The beer was cold, the garage was quiet, and for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. That lasted exactly 37 seconds until I heard Melissa's voice drifting through the cracked window above my workbench. "Brian, honey, after tomorrow we'll finally be free of him." Her laugh was sharp, cutting through the November air like broken glass. 500,000 sitting in that deposit box, and he's too stupid to protect it. I set down my wrench carefully, the way you handle a loaded weapon. 23 years of marriage, and she thought I was deaf as well as dumb. "The court order came through today," she continued, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "My lawyer says it's airtight. Community property laws, you know. Half of everything, including inheritances received during marriage." My inheritance. From Uncle Pete, who'd worked 3 jobs his whole life and saved every penny. The man who taught me that respect is earned, not given. And that family means something. I moved closer to the window, staying in the shadows. Through the kitchen window, I could see her pacing, phone pressed to her ear, designer heels clicking on the marble floor I'd installed myself. "He actually thinks I don't know about the safe deposit box," she said. "Poor fool probably assumes I'll settle for alimony and half the house." The garage suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. I'd suspected the affair for months. Late nights at the office, new clothes, that particular glow that comes from stolen moments. But this was calculated betrayal on a whole different level. "Linda was right," Melissa continued. "Sometimes you have to take what's yours. He had his chance to treat me like I deserved." Linda. Of course. Melissa's best friend since law school. The one who'd been filling her head with empowerment nonsense and designer ambitions, the same Linda who'd smiled at me last Christmas while plotting my destruction. I grabbed my phone and activated the voice recorder. If my wife wanted to play legal games, she'd learn that 2 could participate in that particular sport. "Meet me at your place in an hour," she said. "We should celebrate properly." The line went quiet, and I heard her heels clicking toward the front door. Car engine, driveway, gone. I sat back on my workbench, staring at the tools Uncle Pete had left me alongside his money. He'd been a mechanic, a simple man who understood that the right tool applied correctly could fix almost anything, or in some cases, take it apart completely. My phone buzzed, a text from Ralph, my old army buddy who now ran a tow truck business. "Heard through the grapevine your wife's been meeting with divorce lawyers. You okay?" I typed back, "Define okay." "Want to grab a beer, talk it through?" Rain check. Got some planning to do. The next few hours passed in a blur of research and preparation. Melissa thought she was clever, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated the man she'd been married to for over 2 decades. By morning, I had a plan. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The First National Bank looked exactly like what it was, a monument to old money and older secrets. Marble floors, brass fixtures, and the kind of hushed atmosphere that made people whisper about their financial business. Melissa arrived at precisely 10 a.m., flanked by her lawyer, and radiating the confidence of someone who believed victory was guaranteed. She wore her power suit, the navy blue one that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Thomas," she said, her voice professionally neutral, "I trust you have the key?" I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the small brass key Uncle Pete had given me. "Right here. Though I should mention, you might find the contents interesting." Her lawyer, a thin man with nervous eyes named Peterson, cleared his throat. "Mr. Anderson, I want to assure you this is all perfectly legal. The court order clearly states—" "I can read," I interrupted. "Shall we get this over with?" The bank manager, a middle-aged woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, led us to the vault. The safe deposit box was larger than most, number 247, and it took both keys to open it. Melissa's eyes lit up as the metal door swung open. Then her expression changed. No cash, no bonds, no neat stacks of hundreds. Instead, the box contained a manila envelope, a USB drive, and a letter with her name on it. "What is this?" she demanded, reaching for the envelope. "I wouldn't," I said calmly. "Not unless you want your career to end before lunch." Peterson grabbed her wrist. "Don't touch anything. We need to understand what we're dealing with first." I picked up the letter and handed it to her. "Go ahead, read it aloud. I think everyone should hear this." Her hands shook slightly as she unfolded the paper. "Thomas, if you're reading this, you've decided to steal from me. Congratulations. You've also just discovered that I know exactly who you really are." She stopped reading, her face going pale. "Continue," I said pleasantly. "The USB contains copies of your text messages with Brian Chambers, including the ones where you discuss forging client signatures. The envelope contains photocopies of the Henderson contract you altered last month, along with documentation of the 3 other cases where you've committed fraud." Peterson made a choking sound. "Melissa, tell me this isn't true." "The bank's security cameras are recording this conversation," I added helpfully, "just so everyone's clear on what's happening here." Melissa's composure cracked completely. "You can't prove anything. These could be fabricated." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. "Voice recording from last night. Your conversation with Brian about stealing my inheritance. Time-stamped, authenticated, and already backed up to 3 different cloud services." The bank manager stepped forward nervously. "Perhaps we should move this conversation to a private office?" "No need," I said, closing the safe deposit box with a decisive click. "We're finished here. Melissa, you wanted half of my inheritance? Congratulations. You can have half of nothing." "Where's the money?" she hissed. "What money? Uncle Pete left me his tools and some old photographs, sentimental value only." Peterson was frantically whispering in her ear, but she shook him off. "The 500,000, I know it exists." "Existed," I corrected. "Past tense. Donated to charity last week. The Veterans Foundation sends their thanks." That was a lie, but a beautiful one. The money was safely invested in a trust fund for my nephew, completely beyond her reach. Melissa lunged toward me, but Peterson held her back. "We're leaving. Now." As they hurried toward the exit, I called after them. "Oh, Melissa, you might want to check your office voicemail. I believe your boss wanted to speak with you about some irregularities in your recent cases." The bank manager waited until they were gone before speaking. "Mr. Anderson, I hope you know what you're doing." "For the first time in years," I said, "I know exactly what I'm doing." The next few days passed like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. Melissa's law firm suspended her pending an investigation into client fraud. Brian, her lover and partner in crime, found himself facing similar scrutiny. Linda, the puppet master behind it all, discovered that her own secrets weren't as well hidden as she'd believed. I was in my garage, organizing Uncle Pete's tools, when Ralph showed up with coffee and donuts. "You look pleased with yourself," he said, settling onto an old crate. "Should I not be?" "Depends. How far are you planning to take this?" I selected a wrench from the toolbox, weighing it in my hand. "She tried to steal from me, Ralph. Not just money, my uncle's legacy. The respect he earned through decades of honest work. I get it, but revenge has a way of spiraling out of control." Before I could respond, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Thomas Anderson?" The voice was unfamiliar, professionally neutral. "Speaking." "This is Detective Morrison with the Financial Crimes Unit. We'd like to ask you some questions about allegations of fraud involving your wife's law practice." I met Ralph's eyes. "I'd be happy to cooperate, Detective. When would be convenient?" "How about now?" An hour later, I sat in a sterile interview room, telling my story to 2 detectives who took notes and nodded in all the right places. The voice recording, the forged documents, the pattern of deception. It all painted a clear picture of a woman who'd lost her moral compass somewhere between law school and a corner office. "Your wife's attorney contacted us," Detective Morrison said. "Claims you fabricated evidence to frame her." "Did he show you any proof of that?" "No. In fact, our handwriting expert confirmed the documents are genuine. Your wife's signature, her handwriting, everything checks out." I nodded solemnly. I'm not surprised. Melissa always was thorough in her work. "There's one more thing," the second detective said. "We've been investigating irregularities at her firm for months. Your evidence just filled in the missing pieces. That evening, I was replacing spark plugs in my truck when Melissa's car screeched into the driveway. She stormed into the garage, still wearing her power suit, but looking significantly less powerful. "You destroyed me," she said without preamble. I defended myself. "There's a difference. I loved you once." I set down my socket wrench and looked at her directly. "No, you didn't. You loved the idea of me, the steady paycheck, the house, the respectability. But you never loved me." "That's not true." "Prove it. Tell me one thing about me that isn't connected to what I could provide for you." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "Exactly," I said. "You want to know what love looks like? Uncle Pete worked 3 jobs for 40 years to save that money. He left it to me because he believed I'd use it wisely. That's love. What you did, that's just greed." "The firm fired me," she said quietly. "I heard. Brian won't return my calls. Shocking. Linda says I should fight this, hire a better lawyer." I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "Linda? The same Linda who convinced you to have the affair in the first place? The one who helped you plan this whole scheme?" "She was trying to help me." "Was she? Or was she settling an old score?" Melissa frowned. "What do you mean?" "Think about it. Who suggested Brian? Who found the lawyer? Who convinced you the inheritance was cash instead of tools and photographs?" I could see the wheels turning in her head, the slow realization that she'd been played just as thoroughly as she'd tried to play me. "Linda wouldn't. 3 years ago, I reported irregularities in the city contracts Linda's company was bidding on. Cost her about $2 million in lost business. She's been waiting for payback ever since." Melissa sank onto a crate, the fight draining out of her. "So this was all for nothing?" "Not nothing. You learned something important about the people you trust." She looked up at me with something that might have been regret. "Can we fix this? The marriage, I mean?" I considered the question seriously. "Do you want to fix it, or do you just want your old life back?" "I don't know the difference anymore." "That," I said, returning to my truck, "is the problem." The courthouse steps were crowded with lawyers, clients, and the usual collection of people drawn to public drama. Local news crews had set up cameras, having caught wind of the scandal involving one of the city's prominent law firms. I arrived early, wearing my best suit, the one I'd bought for Uncle Pete's funeral. Melissa was already there with a new lawyer, looking smaller somehow, diminished. Brian stood near the courthouse entrance, checking his phone nervously. Linda paced near the parking meter, her usual confidence replaced by barely controlled panic. The press conference was supposed to be Melissa's attempt at damage control, a chance to present her side of the story. What she didn't know was that I'd spent the morning making some calls of my own. "Ladies and gentlemen," the new lawyer began, "my client has been the victim of a malicious campaign designed to destroy her reputation and career." I stepped forward from the crowd. "Excuse me." The lawyer paused, annoyed. "Sir, this is a private press conference. On public property, about public allegations of fraud. I think I have standing." Melissa saw me and her face went white. "Thomas, don't." "Don't what? Tell the truth?" I pulled out my phone and held it up. "This device contains recorded conversations between my wife and her lover, discussing plans to defraud me of my inheritance through forged documents and perjured testimony." The cameras turned toward me. It also contains evidence that this wasn't a crime of passion, but a calculated scheme orchestrated by Linda Martinez, who used my wife's affair to settle a personal vendetta against me. Linda pushed through the crowd. That's a lie. Is it? Should we discuss the Henderson contract? Or maybe the Morrison case? 3 separate instances of fraud, all suggested by you, all designed to implicate Melissa while hiding your own involvement. Brian tried to slip away, but Ralph appeared beside him. I'd asked my friend to keep an eye on the exits. The beautiful part, I continued, addressing the cameras directly, is that Linda convinced my wife to betray our marriage for money that didn't exist. The inheritance she was so eager to steal, tools and photographs, sentimental value only. Where's the $500,000? Someone called out. Invested in a trust fund for my nephew's education. Completely legal, completely protected, and completely beyond the reach of anyone who thought they could steal it. Melissa's new lawyer was frantically trying to end the press conference, but the reporters smelled a bigger story. Mrs. Anderson, one of them called out, do you have any response to these allegations? Melissa looked at me, then at Linda, then at Brian. For a moment, I thought she might try to salvage something from the wreckage. Instead, she walked to the microphone. My husband is telling the truth, she said quietly. I was manipulated into betraying the one person who never lied to me, never cheated on me, and never asked me to be anything other than who I was. I have no excuse for that. The crowd murmured. Linda started toward her car, but Detective Morrison was waiting by the driver's door. Linda Martinez, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud. Brian made a run for it, sprinting across the courthouse lawn. He made it about 50 yards before tripping over his own feet and landing face first in a decorative fountain. The cameras caught every second. I walked over to where Melissa stood, alone now, watching her world collapse in real time. I'm sorry, she said. I know. Is there any chance? No, I said, not unkindly. There isn't. She nodded, understanding. What happens now? Now you figure out who you want to be when nobody's watching. Uncle Pete used to say that character is what you do when you think you can get away with anything. I started walking toward my truck, then stopped and turned back. The tools are still in the garage if you want to learn how to fix things instead of breaking them. She was still standing there when I drove away, looking lost, but maybe, for the first time in years, honest about it. The radio was playing classic rock, the sun was shining, and I had Uncle Pete's legacy safe where it belonged. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's becoming someone worthy of the trust that was placed in you. I drove home to my garage, my tools, and the quiet satisfaction of a job well done.